Every school kid knows what a warship is supposed to look like. Long, sleek, and pointed. A hull designed to slice through the waves and leave the ocean in its wake. But in 1873, the Imperial Russian Navy threw the rulebook out the window. They built a massive circular disc. No bow, no stern. Just a giant iron sea bathtub dropped into the water. This is the infamous Popoff, one of the weirdest ships to ever fly a naval ensign. Today we're not just looking at its bizarre design, we're diving into the fatal flaw that sank this project before it ever saw combat, the blind spot of fluid dynamics. The story begins in 1856. After a crushing defeat in the Crimean War, Russia was forced to sign the Treaty of Paris, which essentially banned them for keeping a real navy in the Black Sea. Fast forward a decade and the Tsar wanted back in, but he had a massive geographic problem. The northern coast was incredibly shallow.
Heavy guns, thick armor, and a draft of less than 4 meters, 13 feet. The Admiralty lords wanted it all. It was like trying to fit an elephant on a tightrope. Every conventional design failed.
Facing this impossible task, Vice Admiral Andrey Popov stepped forward with a radical idea. If we need maximum buoyancy in shallow water, why not just make the ship infinitely wide? Why not make it round? After a 3.5-meter wide model actually floated in a test tank, Tsar Alexander II was hooked. He fell for this out-of-the-box concept hook, line, and sinker. Excited. On paper, it was perfect. A circular hull has the shortest perimeter for the thickest armor, and it could carry 2 monster 11-inch guns. Popov won the battle of logic, size, but he was about to lose the war against physics.
Back then, there were no fluid dynamics simulations. Shipbuilding was more of an educated guess than a hard science. Popov assumed symmetry would bring stability, but he ignored how water actually moves. First, the resistance paradox. A normal ship slices the water. The Popov? It pushed it. That massive circular belly created a low-pressure zone and a chaotic mess of wake behind it. The result? 3,000 horsepower could only push this iron tub to a staggering 6.5 knots. That's roughly 7 miles per hour. You could literally jog faster than this warship. Second, the spinning curse. Physics tells us that a circle is inherently unstable in a fluid. Because the ship lacked a long hull to provide lateral resistance, the laws of momentum took over. Whenever those 11-inch guns fired, the massive recoil sent the entire ship into a violent spin. The crew would often spend 20 minutes just trying to get the ship pointed back at the target, by which time the enemy had long since disappeared over the horizon. To bypass treaty restrictions, the Russians had to build the ship in pieces. 2,000 tons of iron were hauled 2,000 kilometers across the interior via rail and river, a logistical nightmare that strained the national infrastructure to its breaking point. Once the parts arrived, assembly was a disaster. Local workers had zero experience building such a monster, and under a crushing deadline, the process dragged on for years. When she finally hit the water for sea trials, the aha moment became an oh no moment. Since she was a perfect circle, the rudder was useless. Turning required a delicate dance of differential thrust from 6 separate propellers. One wrong move, and she'd spin like a top. Between the spinning and the erratic tossing of the waves, the sailors were constantly seasick. They took to calling her the Drunken Sailor. When the Russo-Turkish War broke out in 1877, the ship that was supposed to dominate the coast couldn't even leave the harbor. Because she was so slow and unseaworthy, she was relegated to being a floating battery. While she was a total failure as a warship, the project wasn't a total waste. It forced Russia to realize that genius ideas couldn't replace a solid industrial base. They pivoted, ordering new, modern battleships from France and the US. This technological blood transfusion allowed Russia to skip a generation of failed experiments and finally modernize its fleet. The late 19th century was the Wild West of naval tech. Torpedoes, enclosed turrets, and compound armor were all emerging. Some became legends, while others, like the Popoff, literally spun out of existence. She went down in history as one of the worst warships ever built. But she was a necessary tuition fee for the School of Science. She serves as a permanent reminder to engineers. A genius concept, without data to back it up, is just a fragile hallucination in the face of physical laws. The road to success is paved with weird, wonderful failures. The truly smart don't avoid mistakes. They learn from them and keep moving forward. Thanks for watching Strange Tales of War. We'll see you in the next one.